Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be cracking open the psychology of money.
Oh, cool.
To explore all those kind of like hidden forces behind our financial choices, you know?
It's wild how money,
Yeah.
something that seems so concrete and number-based
Yeah.
is
Yep.
actually so tied to our emotions and our experiences.
It's not always about
Yeah,
being
no.
a math whiz or having some fancy degree, you know?
Totally.
Sometimes it seems like the most financially successful people are not the ones you'd expect at all.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
The book starts with a story that I think really illustrates this point.
Okay.
Ronald Redd,
Okay.
janitor in Vermont,
Okay.
lived really frugally, fixed cars, chopped firewood
Oh.
in his spare time.
Okay.
But when he passed away at age 92,
Yeah.
he left behind an $8 million fortune.
$8 million.
$8 million.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, what can we learn from someone like Ronald Redd?
Well, I think, Reed's story really challenges this idea that wealth is only for the elite or, people making these risky bets and stuff.
Right.
He was a blue-collar worker who really understood the power of just consistency and patience. He invested steadily in blue-chip stocks.
Okay.
Let compounding do its work over decades.
It makes you think, right? Maybe the real secret to building wealth isn't about finding the next hot stock tip or something. It's more about just
Totally.
mastering your own behavior.
It's like your behavior is almost like the biggest asset you have, potentially.
Yeah.
And that ties into
That's cool.
the core message of this book, really, which is understanding the psychology of money.
Yeah.
How our emotions, biases, all that influence our financial decisions. It's that is just as important as to understand the financial concepts themselves.
Right. So it's not just about knowing what to do with money, but it's also
why we do what we do with it. Right.
Why we do what we do.
And sometimes those reasons aren't always rational, are they?
Sometimes they're totally irrational. And the book really digs into how our personal experiences with money, especially early in life, shape our money blueprint.
Okay.
And how that influences our choices, often subconsciously.
So that's interesting. Even if we think we're being logical about money,
right?
There's this whole other layer of emotions and past experiences that are influencing what we decide.
Yeah. If you grew up during a recession, you might be more risk averse even years later with investments.
Right.
Even if, intellectually the numbers say, oh, it's okay, we're past that.
Right.
But your gut is like, I don't like it.
Totally.
The book even shares this story about a Chinese factory worker
who considered their job a huge step up from their previous work in prostitution.
Wow.
And it's just a really good example of how our view of wealth is so relative.
Totally.
To our own experience and what we consider normal.
What seems like a fortune to one person might be barely enough to get by for another, right?
Totally.
Depending on where they came from and all that.
Totally.
That's such
it's all about perspective.
Yeah, that's such a powerful example.
Yeah.
That our views on money are just so subjective.
Totally subjective.
So it kind of makes you wonder, if all of our financial behaviors are so rooted in our personal history, how do we even become more aware of those?
Right.
To make better decisions for the future?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really where this book, The Psychology of Money, shines, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's not just, it's not a finance book.
Right.
Per se.
Yeah.
It's also about self-awareness.
Yeah.
Understanding the hidden forces that are driving our financial choices.
Totally.
And speaking of hidden forces.
Okay.
This book really digs into the role of luck and risk.
Okay.
Which are often overlooked when we talk about, financial success or failure.
It's we all know that luck plays a role.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we really appreciate how big a role it is.
Right.
The author uses the example of Bill Gates.
Oh, yeah.
Who had access to a computer terminal in high school.
Yeah.
Back when that was
unheard of.
Unheard of, right.
Yeah, that early exposure undoubtedly contributed to his success.
Right. Talk about being in the right place at the right time.
Total chance encounter.
Yeah.
Right. But, here's the thing.
Okay.
Even when we like intellectually understand the role of luck.
It's hard to
internalize it.
Internalize it, because it's like, you see somebody else who got lucky and you think
bad about yourself.
Well, you're like, why didn't I get that lucky?
Yeah.
And then the flip side of that is risk, right?
Okay.
Some financial failures are due to bad judgment, sure.
Right.
But some are just the outcome of taking a calculated risk.
Totally.
Just like unexpected good fortune.
Yeah.
Bad luck can strike anyone.
So are you saying it's important to not beat ourselves up too much when things go wrong financially?
I think so. And I think the book really emphasizes that.
Okay.
It emphasizes like the need to forgive ourselves and others for financial failures. Because, you can't control everything.
You can't control everything, right?
You can make the best decision with the information you have at the time. And something crazy can happen.
And then pandemic hits or whatever.
This makes me think about like the stories we tell ourselves, right? About success and failure. And like, do we give ourselves enough credit for our wins? Right. And do we acknowledge the role of luck in our losses?
Absolutely.
It seems like understanding that balance could lead to some healthier financial decisions.
Yeah, it's like it helps us make more informed choices, right?
Right.
And avoid unnecessary risk.
Right. So speaking of risk, the book also talks about the danger of this never enough idea, right?
This never enough mindset.
Yeah, and they use this cautionary tale of Rajat Gupta. Yeah.
This, like, wildly successful businessman who risked it all for a chance at becoming a billionaire.
Right. It's like the more you have, the more you want.
Yeah. It's like that, it's like that saying, like, enough is never enough.
Yeah, but when does ambition cross over into recklessness?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think his story's a good example of like the dark side of ambition, right? Fueled by comparison and this constant pressure to like accumulate more.
To accumulate more and more.
And this never enough mindset.
Right.
It can lead to these dangerous financial decisions.
Yeah, and it prevents you from actually...
And ultimately, prevents you from enjoying what you already have.
What you already have, right.
Yeah.
So the key takeaway here is define enough for yourself.
Yeah.
And find contentment.
Find contentment.
Rather than not
chasing
this
ever-moving target.
Ever-moving target, right?
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of something else that the book dives into, which is the power of compounding.
Compounding. Oh, yeah.
The author compares it to the formation of ice ages.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's like these small, consistent changes over a long period of time lead to these massive results.
Massive results, yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible how something so seemingly simple can be so powerful, right?
It's kind of mind-blowing.
The book illustrates this with examples like savings and technology advancements.
Right.
Like, take hard drive storage, for instance.
Okay.
In just a few decades, the capacity's increased.
Oh, yeah.
Exponentially.
Exponentially, yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way, but it's like a perfect example of how small, consistent changes lead to these huge results over time.
Over time, right?
Yeah. And you can apply that to your financial decisions.
Oh, yeah, totally.
As well, right?
Yeah.
Like, starting early.
It's all about starting early.
Even with small contributions.
Doesn't matter how small.
It can lead to significant wealth.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like playing the long game.
Right.
Let time work its magic.
Yeah, it's not about getting rich quick.
Right. No get-rich-quick schemes.
It's about slow and steady.
Slow and steady wins the race, right.
Slow and steady.
And speaking of the long game, the book contrasts these two stories of Jesse Livermore, this brilliant trader who made and lost fortunes.
Oh, wow.
And Warren Buffett, who's known for his steady, long-term approach to building wealth.
Yeah, it's a great comparison.
It's a fascinating comparison.
Yeah, because it really highlights the difference between, like, gaining wealth and then maintaining wealth.
Right.
And Livermore.
Totally.
He was a classic example of someone who was brilliant, but...
maybe a little overconfident. A little impulsive in his decisions.
Right.
Whereas Buffett's like the model of frugality and patience.
Yeah.
And, avoiding debt.
Avoiding debt.
Yeah, all that.
So it's not just about making money. It's about keeping it, making it work for you. Right.
It's like, what's the point if you just make it and lose it?
Yeah.
It
takes a different mindset to
It does.
maintain wealth than to gain it, right?
Yeah, right.
And this kind of leads to another key concept that the book explores, which is the importance of having room for error.
Room for error, yeah.
In our financial plans.
You mean like a cushion?
Yeah, like having a cushion, right? Just in case things don't.
Right, if things don't go as planned. Yeah. Because, just like a skilled blackjack card counter knows they can't predict every card. Right. You can't foresee every market fluctuation.
Or
life event, right.
Every life event, yeah.
It's like we need to plan for a range of outcomes.
Right.
And not make these all or nothing decisions that could wipe us out if things go wrong.
It's like building that safety net into your financial plan, right?
I like that. That's a good analogy. Building that safety net.
Yeah.
The book argues a little bit of paranoia can be healthy when it comes to financial decision making.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it helps you make those resilient choices that can help you weather the storms that life inevitably throws your way.
Yeah. So you're not just constantly on edge every time.
Right. Living on the edge.
Yeah. Every time something small happens, you're not freaking out, right? It seems like that allows you to make clearer decisions.
Yeah.
Because you're not just constantly worried.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like the book talks about being reasonable.
Yeah.
Not just rational when it comes to money.
Right.
Because sometimes the best decision isn't the one that maximizes potential gains.
Yeah.
But it's the one that allows you to sleep well at night.
Right.
Knowing you can handle whatever comes up.
It's about finding that balance between
between gains and
maximizing gains
and protecting yourself from potential losses.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
So that leads to another kind of interesting thing that's explored in the book.
Okay.
Which is the allure of pessimism.
Of pessimism. Okay.
Yeah, why is it that pessimism often sounds smarter?
Why does it sound smart?
And why does it get so much attention?
Right.
Even though historically things have generally gotten better over time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like
we're hardwired to focus on the negative almost, right?
It's like that. And maybe it's just an evolutionary
that negativity bias.
Survival.
Yeah, maybe it's evolution. I mean, the book points out that pessimism really highlights potential risks and problems, which can be intellectually stimulating.
It's easy to
and imagine things. It's way easier to imagine
things going wrong
than it is to
see a rosy picture.
Picture some rosy future.
Yeah, totally.
Even if the data suggests otherwise.
And this isn't just what individuals. Right. And it's not just individuals.
Right.
Yeah. It plays out on a larger scale.
Yeah. They use the example of the 2008 financial crisis to show how
widespread
pessimism
can actually fuel that downward spiral.
The narrative that surrounds the economy can have such a
huge impact.
Big impact. Yeah.
You look at 2007.
Right.
It was stability and growth.
Right.
And then by 2009, it was fear and uncertainty.
Yeah, complete shift.
Even though
some of the
underlying fundamentals were
the same.
The same.
Yes,
it's like a.
But the narrative had changed.
Self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
It is. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
If everybody thinks the economy is going to tank, they're going to act in ways that make that.
They're going to act in ways.
It's more likely to happen, right?
Exactly.
So it's important to be aware of risks.
Yes.
And to
plan for
potential setbacks, right?
For the worst, but also.
But the book also emphasizes the need for a balanced.
A balanced perspective,
Perspective.
Acknowledging that.
Acknowledging optimism's role.
Optimism also plays a role in
driving.
Innovation
and progress, And that
can actually
lead to better
outcomes.
Outcomes, right.
Yeah.
It's not about ignoring the potential problems.
It's not about being naive and ignoring problems.
But it's about approaching them with a sense of agency, right?
Early.
And believing in your ability to...
It's like believing that we can...
navigate challenges.
Navigate these things and find solutions.
Find solutions.
Yeah, right.
And speaking of narratives, the book gives this thought-provoking example to illustrate how, like, stories can really shape our economic decisions. Right.
Okay.
And it's like, it's not just tangible factors that do this.
Okay, what's the example?
So imagine, like, an alien visiting Earth in 2007.
Okay.
And then again in 2009.
Okay. What would they see?
Well, they would see that, like, the tangible aspects of the economy, like infrastructure and technology and knowledge, remained largely unchanged.
Right.
But the mood had shifted.
The mood had shifted dramatically.
Dramatically.
That's fascinating, right?
Like, the objective.
The objective reality.
The reality was very similar.
Was very similar.
But the story that people were telling themselves...
But the story changed.
Had changed.
Yeah.
Therefore, their behavior changed.
Their behavior changed, It highlights the power of narratives and how they can influence our perception.
Absolutely.
Right. Even when they don't fully...
Even when aligned with...
We don't match up with reality.
Yeah. This reminds me of something else that the book explores, which is this concept of appealing fictions.
Appealing fictions.
There's narratives that we cling to.
Yeah, these stories we tell ourselves.
Even if they're not entirely accurate.
Even if they're not true.
Right.
You know?
The book shares a story about a father in Yemen who sought out these traditional healers for his sick son because he desperately wanted to believe there was like
a simple
cure. Right.
Yeah.
But sadly, this delayed seeking proper medical treatment.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like...
It shows how appealing fictions can sometimes have...
These stories.
Can have tragic consequences. Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that while stories can be comforting...
They can be.
Especially in times of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right.
It feels good to believe in a simple solution.
It's important to be critical thinkers.
It's also important to be a critical thinker.
Right.
Right.
And to seek out
look for the
evidence-based information.
Sense,
especially when it comes to important decisions.
Especially important decisions, like medical decisions.
Like medical decisions, but also financial decisions.
Financial decisions.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be aware of the stories.
What are the stories?
We tell ourselves.
We're telling ourselves.
About money.
About money and the economy.
The economy.
About our own capabilities.
And our own capabilities, because those stories, those narratives.
They can have a real impact.
Real impact on our
actions.
Actions and outcomes.
And our outcomes, yeah.
This kind of brings us to another key theme in the book.
Okay.
Which is this evolution.
The evolution,
of the American consumer story.
The American consumer story.
From post-World War II to the present day.
That's a big one.
It's amazing how much our relationship with money has changed over the decades, right?
Oh, it's totally changed.
Yeah.
The post-war period was just this time of, like, unprecedented economic growth and optimism.
Optimism, right.
Yeah.
It's like that shaped the whole definition.
Yeah, and Americans really...
The American dream.
Embraced consumerism, right?
Yeah.
Fueled by, like...
Easy credit.
Easy credit.
Yeah.
And this belief that, like, good times...
We're going to continue.
We just continue forever.
Forever, right.
Yeah.
It's like the house.
Yeah, it's like...
The car, the good life.
Yeah.
It was just like the ultimate goal.
Right, the ultimate goal. Right. But as the book points out, that narrative started to shift.
It started to change.
In the 1970s, right?
Yeah, with rising
inequality.
Inequality, economic uncertainty.
Economic uncertainty.
You know, like the gains weren't
as evenly distributed.
As evenly spread, and so there was this widening gap between the rich and everyone else.
And yet so many Americans still kind of clung to those... you know, like consumerist
ideals,
ideals
from the post-war era.
Of the post-war era, right?
Yeah.
even as those ideals became
harder
and harder to actually achieve.
Yeah, like unattainable almost.
Yeah.
Without taking on a ton of debt.
Without taking on massive debt.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
That's a good point.
It's like
our economic paradigms can sometimes lag behind.
Totally.
Right.
It's like we're stuck in the past.
And that can lead to financial decisions that aren't actually serving us well.
That don't make sense anymore.
Yeah. So what's the takeaway here, right?
So how do we
navigate these
shifting realities?
Shifting economic realities.
Yeah, how do we make good
financial decisions
in this environment?
I think the book argues that understanding this historical context is crucial. You know?
Right.
Like we need to be aware of the stories that we've inherited about money.
Yeah.
And we need to be willing to challenge those stories when they don't align with reality
anymore. Right. It's like we need to
adapt our strategy
to the changing times and
the changing times.
What worked for our parents or our grandparents
totally
might not work for us now.
You're right.
Right.
And that kind of leads to another distinction that the book makes, which is the difference between wealth and richness.
Okay, are they not the same thing?
Not necessarily. The book makes this argument that true wealth isn't about
flashy cars and
flashy displays of consumption.
Yeah, all that.
Right. It's more about financial security and having the freedom to make choices aligned with your values.
Yeah.
So you could have someone who's rich,
making a lot of money, got all the stuff,
fancy car, the big house.
But they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And they're burdened by debt.
Right. So they don't actually have
that wealth.
Yeah. It's like that saying, wealth is what you don't see.
I like that.
It's like having
a foundation, right?
Yeah, that solid foundation.
That cushion.
Right. Yeah, that you can fall back on.
And then that gives you the ability to make choices.
And the ability to make choices that
support your well-being.
Yeah. That align with
not just your image.
Your values. Not just your image.
It seems like.
And one of the best ways to build that foundation is through saving.
Okay. So saving isn't
just about accumulating wealth. It's also about gaining freedom. And flexibility.
It's not just about having money in the bank.
Right. It's about what that money...
It's about what you can do.
Allows you to do.
With that money.
Yeah, right.
Having savings.
Yeah.
It gives you options.
Yeah.
It gives you the ability to weather
those financial storms.
Yeah.
Right.
It gives you the freedom to pursue your passions. Take risks. Make choices that align with your values.
Yeah.
Instead of being dictated by
circumstances.
Like financial constraints.
Yeah. Yeah, you have that.
You have that power to say yes.
To say yes or to say no. Right.
Yeah.
And in today's world, it seems like flexibility is more important.
In today's world, ever.
Right.
Flexibility.
Because things are changing so
essential.
Yeah.
Fast. The book argues that
intelligence alone
isn't
enough anymore. What else is needed?
You need the ability to adapt, to learn new skills. And to seize opportunities.
Yeah. So it's not just about
what's
It's not just about what you know. It's also about
how quickly you can learn.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And this leads to this fascinating analogy that the book uses to illustrate our often irrational approach to financial decisions.
Okay.
And it compares our resistance to fevers.
Okay.
To our tendency to panic when the stock market dips.
Oh, interesting.
I've never thought about it that way.
I like that.
But it makes sense, right?
Yeah. We
reach for the Tylenol.
We reach for the medicine cabinet at the first sign of a fever.
Right. At the first sign of a fever.
Even though it's a natural and often...
It's our body's way of... part of the body's healing process.
Right.
Like a natural immune response.
Yeah, and it's the same with the stock market, right?
Yeah, the same way.
We panic and sell when...
Yeah, we see a little dip.
Market dips.
And we're like, ugh.
Even though...
That's
a natural...
part of the process.
Part of the process. It's normal.
So are you saying we should just
I think the book argues that
downturns and just write them out.
We should approach financial volatility with the same mindset that we approach. Like
a fever.
A fever, yeah. It's like instead of fearing it and avoiding it, we should learn to
write it out.
Write it out, knowing that like the market, like the human body has this natural tendency
to heal
and recover. Yeah.
A helpful
analogy.
I like that.
It helps you kind of
reframe
how we view it. Yeah, and avoid those rash decisions.
Yeah, those
fear,
emotional reactions, right.
Totally.
It ties into that broader message of
and it comes back
aligning your financial decisions with
this idea of like aligning your financial decisions with
values.
Your values and your goals.
And your goals, right.
Right.
So it's not just
about
making money.
Making money to make money.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that your choices
are in line with
reflect what you actually care about.
Value.
Right.
Right.
The book encourages us to really define what matters.
Define what matters.
To us.
Yeah.
And to structure our finances
in a way that
supports
those values.
Yeah. Right. And for some people that might mean, prioritizing experiences over material possessions.
Or maybe it's working towards financial independence. Or maybe it's using your money to make a positive impact.
On
the
world.
Right.
It's like recognizing that money is a tool, right?
Yeah.
And you can use it to...
It's a tool to help you...
create the life you want. Right.
Rather than letting it...
dictate your choices.
Control you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of creating the life you want, the book also emphasizes...
the importance of
valuing your time and your freedom.
Your time and your freedom.
Yeah.
In what way?
I think it's interesting because the author shares a story about his own experience of leaving.
It's like a high-paying but soul-crushing job.
Okay.
Right. And I think it's a good reminder that money can't buy happiness if it comes at the expense of
your well-being or your passions, right?
Or your passions, yeah.
So it's about finding that.
It's about that balance,
right? Yeah.
Between earning enough to support your lifestyle,
live comfortably,
but also having the time.
But also having the time and freedom to pursue the things
that are important to you. Right.
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah. The book also suggests that.
And one of the best things you can do with money is to buy back your time.
Okay, so what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Practically.
Well, it could mean
hiring help with household chores or
outsourcing
tasks.
Wow.
Or choosing a job that offers more flexibility.
Right.
Even if it pays
a little
slightly less.
Less, right.
It's about
recognizing that. Your time.
Time is your most valuable resource.
Yeah.
And that, investing in your time can yield huge dividends.
In terms of
happiness and well-being.
Right. Yeah.
It's like putting a price tag on your time.
It's like putting a price tag on your time.
And making sure you're spending it in ways.
And saying, is this how I want to...
that align with your values.
Just spend my time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then the book also cautions against...
And, on that note...
The book also cautions against this thing called lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle creep. Okay.
It's tendency to increase our spending as our income rises.
Income rises, right.
Right.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
Oh, it's so easy.
You get a raise.
Yeah, you get a little raise and suddenly...
I need a nicer car.
You need a new car.
Or a bigger house.
You need a bigger house.
Right.
You're running on this...
It's like that hedonic treadmill.
Right.
Yeah.
You're constantly
striving for
that bigger, better thing. Yeah.
But never really reaching a state of contentment.
Right. You never actually...
You never arrive.
Right.
Yeah.
So the key is to... define what enough means.
Define enough for yourself.
For you and resist.
Yeah. And resist.
The urge to
keep
up with the Joneses.
Which
is easier said than done.
Right.
Easier said than done.
Right.
For sure. Especially in today's world.
Consumerist
culture that we live in, right?
It takes conscious effort.
It does.
But I think it's worth it. You know?
What's the book?
It's about like aligning your spending with your values.